Welcome everybody. Thank you for joining us for today's APMG webinar, The Future is for the Generalist. I'm Estelle Hicks-Bennett and I'll be your host and moderator today. Today we've a treat in store with you for our esteemed presenter, Antonio Nieto-Rodriguez, who's delivering a wealth of knowledge and experience, which he has under his belt in program and project management, as well as being the co-founder of the Strategy Implementation Institute. Antonio is joined by Dr. Sadi Adra, who's the CEO from Advisors, and they'll be expanding on themselves a little bit later. And we're also joined by Camille Moroz, who's Director Program Management Lead at UCB Pharma in Belgium, who's recently completed the online training and I'm very pleased to say has passed and shared his digital badge today. So congratulations to you, Camille.
Thank you.
Very, very quick bit of housekeeping before I hand over. The session is recorded and we will be sharing the recording and slides with you afterwards. And I think Antonio has a special PDF download to share with everybody as well. Please do ask questions and comment throughout the webinar. Don't wait till the end. We want to hear from you. Any feedback, any comments, we'd love to hear your feedback as we go through, and particularly those questions and engagement, please. If you are on mobile, you may find this difficult, so apologies in advance. Everybody will be muted throughout until perhaps at the end, where we may open mics for people to speak. But so, as I say, do use that chat function, please. And if you do take part, some of the best material happens when we hear from you as well and you're involved. So please do that. So over to you, Antonio, Dr. Sadi and Camille. We're looking forward to it.
Thank you, Estelle. Thank you for the invitations and for hosting this webinar around the future is for generalists. I'm very excited to be here and be able to share about how the future looks like, but I'm even more excited to be here with Dr. Sadi Adra and Camille Moroz, two very, very knowledgeable friends. Who have different views about the future, who have their own stories to tell. So I'm very happy to be able to share a bit of what my latest work is about, not only around the future of work, but also probably most of you heard about the project economy concept. So I'll be sharing a little bit about what is the project economy and also about the Strategy Implementation Institute. What's the purpose of the institute? How did we build it? And yes, what is provided through it? Because we have today two guests, Sadi and Camille, who have gone through the course and been certified by it with APMG. So thank you, Estelle. I'm going to briefly say hi to my co-presenters or panel guest, Camille Moroz. I know Camille since probably 3-4 years. Camille just recently received an incredible award. I think was announced yesterday by PMI. They've created the list of the future 50 next generation thought leaders or influencers in the project management profession. So I'm really happy to have Camille today to explain us about what does it mean, how did he make that to the list, and not only that, but what does he think about the strategy implementation professional and the certification that he also achieved in the past days. Camille has received quite a lot of awards. I don't know anybody who has received so many awards so young, from IPMA, from PMI, so I'm really pleased. Thank you, Camille, for being today with us.
My pleasure, Antonio. Really excited for this discussion, and thank you for having me.
Thank you, Camille. And another very good friend, calling from Lebanon, Dr. Sadi Adra. We met, I think, 4 or 5 years ago in Ghana, in the PMI Africa conference. I love the views and the thoroughness of Dr. Sadi around the future of projects. He has set up an incredible business training consulting in the Middle East, high quality really combining academic with practitioner approach. I think he's one of the most thorough persons I know in terms of project, program, portfolio, PMO, PhD in project and program management from Schema. Welcome, Sadi. Thank you for being with us today.
Thank you, Antonio. I'm very pleased to be here. I'm looking forward to learning together some interesting concepts about the future.
Thank you, Sadi. So the idea of the session today is small introduction, small overview of the project economy, why I think and most of us think that the future is now for generalists, and then spend most of the time on discussing with Sadi, with Camille, and answering your questions. I think we've seen a lot of webinars lately in the last month, so I do enjoy more the discussion and like Sadi was saying, the learning together, so that we get out of this session the most. And of course, you can have different views, and that's something that we also appreciate. So what is the project economy? The project economy is different things for different people. My view of the project economy has two dimensions. One macro view, meaning that the world is turning into projects as the driving engine for prosperity, for economic development. It has been so in the past, but even more now with the crisis and the need for recovering all the economy and creating back some positive thinking and positive developments in societies and in economies around the world. So all the statistics that we see say that the future will see a lot of projects. There's statistic from McKinsey that you see here is the world needs to spend about 57 trillion on infrastructure by 2030 to enable the anticipated level of GDP growth globally. On the other side is the type of work that people are doing. So you see more and more people working project-based, which became a reality for many of us when we started working from home. Mostly is project-based. From a micro level as well, when you look at an organization, you have two types of work in an organization. One is running the operations, running the day-to-day activities, is what you see in this picture in the blue turquoise. And the other type of work is changing. So we need to adapt the company. We need to bring new products. We need to bring new services, create new business models, grow into different markets and acquire companies and engage the employees. So these are the type of change activities. What we've seen in the past 100 years is that over the time, every year, we've done more and more efficiently the operations. A lot of management concepts like value chain improvements. We've seen Taylor, mass production, ERPs, business process reengineering. This has been techniques used on the blue side of the business, on the day-to-day, on the exploitation of the business to do it better. And we've achieved that. We need less resources today to produce more output than in the past. However, what does it mean? That there's a shift. We see more people, more resources dedicated on the change project. You see a lot of people working both on the day-to-day. They have a role in the day-to-day activities while they're busy with 1, 2, 3, 4 projects at the same time. They're not 100% dedicated to projects, but they combine work in the day-to-day and they combine work in the change. So this is what's happening so far. If we look at the future, we expect seeing more change than what we've seen in the past 250 years. So we'll see more changes, disruption in the next 10 years than in the last 250. I sometimes get scared by this. we cannot cope with so much change. Sometimes it's hard to follow blockchain, and you try to learn a bit about blockchain, and now there's something new, artificial intelligence, robots, 3D printing. So it's frightening when you look at the pace, but it's the reality. We cannot hide it. We cannot move away. We need to embrace it and transform the way we think and we develop ourselves and organizations to be successful in the future. So the future, it's about change. What's going to happen into the type of work that I was talking before? The acceleration of taking over by disruption, artificial intelligence, and robots, of the blue side, of the day-to-day activities, of the operations of any business is just going to be much more drastic. What we'll see in a few years is that very few jobs will be left about operations, what we've seen for the last 50 years, traditional jobs in a traditional hierarchy, like marketing, sales, finance, all these type of structures will disappear. It's already the case in some sectors, like banking, for example. You don't see that anymore. You don't see the old structures. They are different. They have moved into more agile concepts. One distinction I want to make clear here, when we talk about projects, the red and the yellow zone, this is a mixture of projects, agile, innovation, lean startup. It's all about change. It's about transformation. It's about doing things different. I call it the project world, but this can be used in different methodologies. I'm not talking about the methodologies. I'm just talking about the different type of work we'll be doing. Some of us will do in a bit more agile. Some of us will do more projects. Some of us will do more product development. That's fine. It's all about change and different type of skills. So the acceleration is going to be massive. Maybe not for us. People working in the project, in the agile, in the change space, we're used to that. Sadi is doing consulting for years. For them, that's not different. Camille has been working in pharma projects and PMO, so it's not different. What is more scary here is for the people who have always been working primarily on a day-to-day job, those people who will be heavily impacted by this transformation that is happening now. There is one research from Accenture Strategy which points in the same direction. They say, survey about 2,000 senior executives about the future of work. In one of the key highlights of this survey, they say that recent research shows that 79% of the executives agree that the workforce of the future will be structured by projects rather than by job functions. Meaning, I'm sure most of us, including me, we had job descriptions. I always had a job descriptions. Well, what we have realized is that we don't really work on the job descriptions. The job descriptions often are used to hire somebody, but then that person will be used the best they can on the priorities of the business. Big companies like IBM, HP, they're thinking to cancel, delete all the job descriptions. They've realized that people don't work in their job descriptions. They work on what is more important, on projects. So they're thinking of giving people a project role for 9, 12 months, and then once the project is over, do something else. Take another role in another project. So this is a drastic change for many people. Many people working will feel the pain of not having job descriptions anymore. And this is a big disruption, probably as much as artificial intelligence in terms of organizational theories. And I think we are there, and this is going to happen very fast. That's the challenge. We are probably already there, but most of the people are struggling. A couple of more points, and then I'm going to move into a bit about the Strategy Implementation Institute. More research. This is very recent. Microsoft says will need these skills after COVID-19. This comes from LinkedIn. LinkedIn has a search functionality and tells you the top ranked projects, role functions, and jobs of the future. And you can see these are project management is there. I think the project manager role is a generalist role. We've been always heard that, but now for the next 10 years, it's a highly demanded job and skill. Same for BCG, to unlock the full potential in the face of constant change, from mass standardization to uniqueness. And that's something that we bring to the table. When you are generalist, you are also unique. You're able to connect the dots. So for me, the big change, and I want to hear the views of Sadi and Camille when we come to the discussion, is I think we come from a world driven by, sorry, the title is wrong. I don't know what happened. We come from a world driven by efficiency. So on the top, it should be a world driven by efficiency, where specialization, deep skills, core competencies were the key for making a career. I've been 25 years working, more than that. Always heard that the best way to make a career, to climb the corporate ladder, was to specialize, to have one core expertise in finance, in risk, in IT, in sales. If you really focus and develop those deep expertise, that will propel your career. You will accelerate, you will go faster, and that leads to higher income as well. So we come from a world of efficiency, and we go to a world driven by change. Let's go to the bottom side. Sorry, it's not efficiency. We're moving into a world driven by change. Unique opportunities for breadth of perspective. Need to grow and develop strategic skills in order to be able to connect the dots from a holistic point of view, as well as their strategy implementation skills to become those that drive organizations in the future. So the way comes now into the generalists, the people who are able to connect the dots, who can put an organization which tends to be silo-based, working on their corners. We need to be able to connect them, to put the people working transversally, to work on long-term projects, on mid-term projects, making sure that that's aligned with the strategy of the company, and change if the competition adapt something faster, and we need to react fast, the agilities too. So we are moving from a world driven by efficiency to a world driven by change. And this is, I think, a great opportunity for us. I think the project economy is great because that means that projects and project management is having a bigger weight in the eyes of senior leaders. But on the other side as well, we're moving from specialization to generalist. And I think if you look at the details of what do I mean when I talk about generalist, it also means that we need to change as well. So I think the project, the change people, if we continue doing what we've done so far, we will not be successful. I think we need to expand as well. As project leaders, I think we need to move more into the strategy implementation, what we call the strategy implementation professionals, meaning we need to understand the idea. We need to understand the entrepreneurship side of a business, what you see in the green side. We need to be able to develop a project around that, to that idea. We need to be able to implement that project and motivate the people, but we also need to be able to run it. When we have created a new product, we need to be able to sell it. We need to be able to run an organization or a department that we've created, and we need to really shift the focus into the benefits, the added value that we bring to the organization. It's not so much about deliverables anymore. It's much more about benefits. I always say we've been trained to plan and make plans around deliverables and artifacts and concrete things which are important, but the general public, your key stakeholders, they just want to see benefits. So we need to learn to plan around benefits. That's what the strategy implementation professional should be able to do. Not talk about deliverables, talk about the value, the benefits, the sustainability of the change that we're bringing. And a couple of things more. I've been heavily involved in projects and program management all my career, PMO. I had to advise people on what to do next. I had to develop myself also to remain relevant for my jobs and the senior leaders I was working. And I noticed a gap. I love PMI. I'm a big fan of PMI. I dedicated many years to support them. I've done MBAs, I've talked to IPMA, but I noticed that there was a gap in the progress of our career development. You can become a certified project management professional, a program manager, a PPM, portfolio manager, but I was missing something a bit more transversal. How can we continue developing ourselves, but go beyond the project management silo and look at strategy from a bigger picture? And that's how, together with my partner, Robin Speculant, who's based in Singapore, one of the pioneers in strategy implementation, 20 years already consulting in this space, we set up to build this institute. And for the sake of providing something different, opening another channel for us to develop and provide a different career development opportunities for all of us. So the Strategy Implementation Institute is built. We have a roadmap of 7 areas that we cover: stakeholder management, culture evolution, employee engagement, track performance, leadership excellence, financial value, and business model. So it's an umbrella. It's something that we can talk a bit more in the panel discussion, but these are elements which reach higher in an organization than just projects. It's connecting projects to the bigger picture. And just to finish, what kind of things we talk in the Strategy Implementation Institute, we talk about leaders need to involve and engage the employees. Strategy was driven top down in the past for many, many years. That has changed. Now is how can we as leaders engage the organization in implementation bottom up. Second, it is very important that organizations and leaders invest in implementation competencies and skills. It's not a cost. It always has some benefits. I think this is one of the biggest challenges I see. How can we move from a business and operating model which was rather structured and firm and rigid when you look at all these traditional organizational charts, to build something more flexible? So we need to understand, as strategy implementation professionals, business models and how they should be adapted constantly. It's not just the products that you sell or the services that you bring, but how you bring them to the market and how you organize as a business. So this is also a key element. I think leaders are the voice of the strategy. We heard about the voice of the customer, but we strongly believe that the leader should be telling the story about the strategy, not just communicating. Communicating, I think, is an activity of the past, both in project management terms as well as a strategy implementation. Communication is not enough. We are bombarded by emails every day. So how can we be efficient in engaging people to embrace and support change in our projects? That's what a good implementation leader should know and do. The fifth implementation mindset that we talk about is caliber of the people drives the implementation. This is a big challenge when I talk to senior leaders, is why don't you train your people on those competencies that are needed? Today is about change it's about strategy implementation, actually project leadership and sponsorship. And then get the right people, the best people in the most strategic projects. Give them full-time dedication to the strategic projects. Assign them 100%, and you'll see that the implementation goes faster. 6 different measures required for a digital world. I have a big problem with some of the traditional measures that we use. According to some of the traditional measures, some of the projects, the most amazing projects we've seen, not just in business, but in society, would have been stopped because they miss some of the traditional KPIs, critical success measures. We need to think different. We need to think about how we measure value and how we deliver digital value. And last, I think this is a very controversial. We all learned the quote, strategy eats culture eats strategy for breakfast from Peter Drucker. This was great in the efficient world. In the efficiency world, yes, culture would eat strategy for breakfast, but we believe that in the world of change, that flips, that now is about strategy implementation is what drives the culture of an organization. So we need to adapt strategy, we need to learn from strategy, and that's what will drive culture. Very controversial last point. I think culture doesn't eat strategy for breakfast anymore. And with that, I want to open up the discussion to Dr. Sadi and Camille for initial thoughts from what you've seen, anything you want to highlight, anything that resonates from your own experience, anything that you disagree, of course, as well.
Camille, please go first. You are our star tonight.
Oh, thank you so much, Dr. Sadi. Thank you, Antonio. As usual, always so insightful and so inspiring for the project management professionals that I know are listening. But now, even another layer to add to that, it's strategy, how important strategy is. And what, something that resonated with me as you were speaking on the topic of the importance of the generalist is actually my career path. I started to reflect on how I started off and where I am now and how I ended up there. So as you know, Antonio, perhaps you don't know Dr. Sadi, I'm actually a specialist by education. So I did my undergraduate degree in chemical engineering and biochemistry, very technical, scientific, specialist fields of society. But then somehow, as I started to work, as a project engineer in some of my first roles, I always found myself in between those specialist and technical teams and between let's say the business managers and the people who wanted to know the more business aspect of what is happening on the shop floor. And so I started off as a coordinator, and then I realized this whole field of project management is open to explore, and I got into project management, and I realized that project management brings structure and a different perspective to driving efficiency, but also being able to bring that up to the top managers so that they understand how the plan is doing, are we progressing, are things moving as they're expected to be, because we have specific benefits at the end of the project to deliver. And sometimes, I naturally found this disconnect that the technical guys, they were so focused on their technical matters that they weren't taking into consideration this business side. Although they knew what they had to do, and they knew at the end of the day they were doing something to either help a customer or help a patient if it's a medical product. But sometimes they just didn't care for the business side and the more generalist stuff. They even called it blah blah. I remember in some of my discussions with the engineers, right? They said we don't want that performance stuff, that blah blah. Just let me do my science. And so I can't emphasize how important this generalist perspective is, Antonio, because I found myself going there, getting to project management, getting into consulting, where being a consultant, I think it's to be a successful consultant, to be a good generalist makes you very interesting for clients, because you're able to change different missions, different assignments, learn about new fields, apply the tools that you have, and be able to deliver and learn, and actually you never are a specialist. You kind of come in, hit the floor running, learn, deliver value, learn and deliver value, and iterate in that perspective. And so again, it's kind of on that same wavelength of being a generalist. And even now, I've just recently switched companies. I went from a PMO in manufacturing in the global AMSAT department to a totally different part of the business within R&D. It's still in program management, but nonetheless, it's again, I feel like I'm a consultant again. I have to learn a totally new part of the business and catch up. But you know, I realize that's the way the world is moving. You will always need your specialists. You will always need your engineers to build your facilities, your equipment, your scientists to discover new molecules. But you need people putting that all together and helping also the leaders to understand and connect, you know, facilitate and connect the dots on how things are going on the shop floor. And if you can do that well, I think you have a really great, you know, career prospect ahead of you. And I can't agree with you more that this generalist perspective, it's definitely a valuable spot to be in the business. So those are my first impressions. I don't know, Dr. Sadi, if perhaps you have anything else to add or share.
Thank you, Camille. Sadi, so Camille, well, you're the great example of generalist with your career path and your recent appointment in this new company in a very different area. So yes, I think you're just the living example of in a difficult world where jobs are at stake, you are moving on and you're doing something different thanks to that generalist approach, knowing how to connect the dots and jumping into a big challenge, not being afraid from that. So thank you, Camille, for sharing that openly. Dr. Sadi, what's your views? It seems that he is frozen.
I think he is a little bit
I can
frozen.
hear you
there
now.
he is.
Maybe there's a problem with the...
There's a little problem with Sadi with your connection in the speed. It got frozen. Maybe just reconnect. I want to continue with Camille. Camille, what was your feeling? First, congratulations on the Future 50 from PMI, this new ranking. Can you explain a little bit more what it is and how you got there?
Yeah, sure. So to be honest with you, I don't know how I got there. I don't know who put my name in the hat. Whoever that individual is, I'm super grateful, and I hope to discover who that person or people were who nominated me. But when I got the email from Sunil, from the CEO of PMI, saying that I was selected, I was really honored. I discovered that initiative just shortly before it was launched on Monday, and it's a great initiative, basically looking at 50 young next generation leaders or influencers, transformers, people who are making an impact, and basically recognizing them for that. And this month's PM Network magazine has a great dedication to these 50 individuals with short descriptions of what achievements they have made, what are they doing, great quotes, and I'll tell you what, they have a really interesting article that is kind of the foreword or the preface of that, explaining how important it is to capture the energy and the enthusiasm and the dynamism that these young leaders bring and leverage them into an organization. And they come up with a few, let's say 6 tips to succeed, or how these young leaders have succeeded. And I thought that article was really well written. So I recommend it for everybody.
Well, and we're very proud of that, Camille. I think you really deserve your passion and how you've been dedicating time to building new generation. The future is great. Sadi, let's move to you. I see you're back. Your first thoughts
Yes,
on the topic.
Okay, let me share a story which happened to me. Around 3 years ago, or a little bit more, 3 or 4 years, there was this inquiry from one major ministry of finance, and they want to establish a project management office to manage a huge portfolio, over $100 billion worth of portfolio. And it was a ministry of finance, and they want to establish a PMO to manage these. Now, when we started to read the RFP, this is a new language. Why? There is a big problem because Ministry of Finance, as part of the government, the people who have the authority, what they do, they look at KPIs and performance indices for the whole government, whether or not they are achieving their vision or not. So that's speaking at a very high strategic level, highly conceptual. On the other hand, there were 6 giga projects, all infrastructure capital projects. And these projects are managed by some of the world's largest construction and engineering companies. And if you work with any of these types of organizations, they do not understand the strategy in terms of the government, the vision, the objectives, but rather they're focused on project execution metrics, estimation data, scheduling, quality, concrete, and so on. So here we were talking about 2 worlds, 2 alien worlds. They were not able to communicate properly to each other because each one speaks a different language. And here is the big role of the generalist to be capable of transforming or be an ambassador or a translator. What do these technical metrics mean when it comes to realizing the strategy? If I finish this structure on time, on budget, does this mean I will achieve the benefits? Many of them are intangible benefits. So this is a huge gray area whereby we need 2 worlds to communicate together, and it cannot be done by merely a project manager. Not enough by what is found in Prince2 or IPMA level D or PMP alone. It has to have a different perspective with it. You have to understand the strategy. You have to understand what is required to be implemented. You have to enhance your communication. You have to be an integrator and a translator to be capable of getting everybody on the same path, on the same line, working together, although their specialties are quite different. So this is what I went through with respect to the being a generalist. And so I totally understand this will be part of the future. Even more, one of the top leading consulting firms in the world, one of the big 4, they started to open something called platform. And in a platform, they integrate the deals, the departments that work with the infrastructure, and they integrate with it, for example, the transformation, the departments that work with the strategy realization office, the vision realization office, the PMOs, and so on. So people now are aware of the need to integrate and to collaborate. These are my 2 cents.
Very, very nice example, real example. Let me go to Estelle. I think there's a few questions.
There's lots of questions. What an engaged audience. You're absolutely fabulous. And I can see that Dr. Sadi has been answering some in the background, but I'd love your thoughts as well, Antonio. Someone says, as a project manager, when you're trying to deliver strategic transformation outcomes, How do you successfully manage the relationship between the project objectives and the wider organizational context?
Wow, what a question. Thank you. Very, very important. I think according to my experience, the project objectives are very important always, but I think they have to be connected somehow on the bigger picture. I always talk about the why of the project. It's the purpose of the project. I have always big discussions with my project team saying, why are we building this HR system or this new, why are we doing this Six Sigma project? Not because we want to improve our operations, it's because we want to improve the rate of delivery, or we want to reduce the number of mistakes by such a certain percentage. We want to have this HR system to increase the engagement of the employees. So I think one of the pitfalls that we have in our way of thinking and looking at projects is that we stop in the objectives, on the deliverables, on the outputs rather than the outcomes. So I think the question is, how can we go deeper into the purpose of the project? Simon Sinek made a career saying, start with the why when you talk about an organization. I do believe that we need to start projects with the why. It's not the business case, it's the real purpose of the project. That's what will help you connect the objectives. That's what motivates people. People want to work in a project for the purpose, not for the 10% return on investment. That's my view. I don't know, Camille, or maybe let's take one more question and then Camille, Sadi, you can build on these points. Estelle, back to you.
Okay, this is a long one. This is a long one, so I'm going to try and condense it down a little from Christina. She's saying, what do you suggest for those who've been stuck between, and I think this is what this course is for, stuck between operational and project management sphere? She's got loads of operational and some project management experience, and not qualified in these two areas, but she is a certified project manager and certified business analyst, and has used a lot of methods in the operational roles. Titles are traditionally engineered, not taken into account for project management roles. Are you able to help with that one?
I leave it to Camille first.
Maybe I can start with the second question first, because I really appreciate that, and I'll tell you what, I have a great solution for you. It's something I advocate to young people all the time. If you are struggling at work to move from an operational role into that first big project management role, I would recommend you to look beyond your organization. And I don't mean changing jobs. What I mean is looking into maybe some sort of volunteer organization that could help you gain some experience to be able to then justify bringing that experience back into the professional world. I've done that when I was a young professional. I volunteered for JCI, which is a young professional volunteer organization aimed at helping the community and creating positive change. And actually, it was through that experience that I probably learned much more in 2 years than I did in 5 years professional experience. Why? Well, because volunteer organizations are a challenge. You don't pay anybody's salary, and so you have to be a very good leader. You have to understand what the purpose of that organization is. Coming back to Antonio, your point on purpose, right? It's very important to understand the purpose. In volunteer organizations, you have to clearly communicate purpose, because you need to motivate your team. You need to get them excited about what you're doing, and you need to then tap into that excitement and be able to channel it into specific resource needs, on the project level, and then work with them to deliver something at the end of the day. And so within JCI, I practiced. I learned about Prince2. I learned about project management principles, and basically I applied some of those methodologies to my volunteer work. And in the process, course, I also, developed on other sides, like I mentioned, on the more emotional, intelligent side. And then when it was time for that next career move, perhaps I didn't have exposure at the professional level where I was working to justify the next step, but I was able to use, in a discussion with my boss, experience that I had gained in the volunteer world, and it worked, and it really helped me and helped to prepare me for the next move, eventually getting into project management. So for me, that's a good tip. That's
great example. Thank you, Camille. And it's true, there's many opportunities beyond what we do day to day in our office, in our companies, and Camille has vast experience on that in different associations. So feel free to reach out. Let me, Estelle, can you bring the next question and we'll ask Sadi to answer that one.
So which business models do you recommend?
Well,
Sadi,
actually, this is a very this is a very high level question. It's highly contextual, depending on industry, depending on objectives, on strategy, depending on current maturity. Okay, the level of digitization you already have, what you need to have. So I just cannot answer this, because answering it requires us to inquire much more about the situation. What do you think, Antonio?
Well, I think it's a great question. I think the business model is the best strategy and vision at the time, and it's a tough one, because you need to make choices and you need to say no to many things. Do you want to keep doing what you're good at today, and this is the focus, or you want to transform and do something else? I think this is one of the toughest questions the senior leaders have to be thinking and deciding upon. So there are few companies that bring this hot topic question to the table, but I do think that this is a great question that every leader should be thinking about. What is our next best business model, and how can we get there, and what are the trade-offs? So I think, like Sadi is saying, it depends, but the question is spot on. Thank you.
And one other thing to, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
Just a small note. Be nimble and agile in the sense that the best business model for you is going to be the best model for you for a short period of time. By the time you implement it and start to reap the benefits, things are changing quickly, so be ready to change it as soon as you perfect it. Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Sadi, and apologies for interrupting there. So I think I'm putting a few questions together here, because I'm seeing a bit of a theme in some of the questions coming through. I think we focused quite a lot on project management, and I will just say that obviously APMG delivers agile project management in amongst all of those that we've listed. But somebody's asked very specifically, how does APMG change the APMG change management course work in synergy with this course? And somebody else has also said that a lot of the things that you're talking about seem very aligned to change management as well as project management, Antonio.
I think I see the questions, Michael, and so on. It's absolutely true what you're saying. Change management, agile. I think these are subset of the skills that we need. I call it project because that might be the bigger word that I use linked to the project economy. But I think project managers need to learn agility. They need to learn change management and product development. I think there's 4 big areas that we need to develop. Product development, we need to learn about change management, not just communication, agile mindset, agile methods, and then the traditional project management. That's where I see the convergence needs. You cannot be just a change manager. You cannot be just a project manager. You cannot be just an agile if you want to. And that's where I think the strategy implementation professional is a bit like an umbrella, where it connects the dots around this discipline. It's still very fundamental. It's kind of foundational we need to keep developing, and I think the future will be developing these competencies further, having a change management expertise or certification, an agile scrum or certification as well. That's, I think, what will make you the all-round generalist or connecting the dot experts. That's my view. So spot on the comments. Yes, you're right. We need to continue. It's not just about project management. That's not the message that we want to give. Camille, do you want to add something on that one?
I totally agree with you, Antonio. Learning doesn't stop anymore. You don't just do your degree after university, you're set to go. Many years ago, that was the case. You can do your degree and be set for your full professional career. Now, what I hear all the time is that universities are trying to prepare students for jobs that don't even exist. What does that mean for professionals? Well, it means that we need to continuously learn and continuously understand how the business is changing, how technology is changing the landscape, how digitalization is changing, and be able to bring the best of different methodologies into our workplace, and be able to add value to our clients, our customers, our patients, whoever we're working for. And so yeah, we're in an era of continuous learning, and to be a good generalist, I think, just if you have some free time, especially now that we're all working from home, there's some great opportunities to do certifications online, and even look at PMI now. Most of the certifications, including the PMP, can be done remotely, right? This strategy implementation professional, you could do it at the comfort of your own home. So just keep learning. That's my tip to you.
Thank you, Camille. Sadi, anything to add on the comments on the change and the agility and how it fits together?
As you said, Antonio, I cannot stress enough that you have to know all. Now, it does not mean that you will be the transformation leader for a mega oil and gas company. No. What I mean is that for you to succeed in your project, you need to understand that the organization does it have readiness for change, and for it, when they want to change, when they want to use your outcome, your output to make it into an outcome, there is a product manager out there. Okay, he's the guy who's gonna make the real benefit, value, revenue, profit for the organization, not the project manager who's only providing the capability. So having this holistic point of view, understanding how the organization works, how the politics works, okay, how each division, to whom I am, if I'm a project manager, I'm a servant to these, okay, because if I provide a good service to them, they will be capable of realizing the strategy of the organization. It's going back to the basics that one hand does not clap alone. We have to collaborate today more than ever.
Nice. Thank you, Sadi. Estelle?
Okay, I think although we have lots and lots and lots of questions stacking up, I'm because you guys have been so brilliant in getting engaged, we're only going to be able to take one more, but I do have to say, Gurpreet, thank you for your message. He's just said what an amazing webinar this is, and he is actually going to book the course, so we love you, so thank you very much. So yeah, the last and final question is, what can a generalist do to increase the perception and understanding of their value when most organizations, business and operational models are designed to hire, promote and reward specialist, not generalist? Great question, Josu.
Thank you. Great question, Lucy. Can we, just before I answer, Estelle, can we get all the questions so that we can answer them later on with the recording, Estelle, if that's possible, because they're all great and I don't like to leave any questions unanswered.
Absolutely, absolutely, we can do that, Antonio, providing that people have given their permission. I can share the questions, but not necessarily their names if they haven't given permission.
No, that's okay.
Okay.
So for me, my experience was to become relevant to the top, was to understand what was relevant for them. So it's not so much about being generalist or expert. It's if you're talking to the finance leader, their priorities around finance. So how can I contribute to their agenda? How can I contribute to their objectives without talking about projects, agility, or change, or just how can I be relevant with what I'm doing with my team? If I'm talking to the CEO or the strategist, what is relevant for them, and how can I connect what I do with what is relevant for them? And you shift the dialogue, and they will start seeing you as somebody that understands their challenges and wants to contribute to help them. So it's very important that you put yourself on their shoes and understand what do they need, what are they challenged, and how can you support that with your project, your agile, your change, your operations. I think that has been for me a key lessons in my career. And I see we have just 1 minute. We want to finish on time, right, Estelle?
We do. If we move on to the last slide, so that we've got the contacts, we can trip over a little bit there. But I have also put all the contacts in the chat. And yes, this is very important. The Strategy Implementation Institute is offering 50% off until the end of July on the certification. So that's obviously a key message from us. But as I say, we will do the follow-up. We will have the slides. I will ensure that everybody's contact details are in there, and I feel pretty sure that everybody is going to want to get in touch with you guys directly. And just to finish off, I do want to say an absolutely huge thank you, packed with information, absolutely very, very valuable. You are all absolutely wonderful. And I know Dr. Sadi runs advisors, and you have these amazing panel discussions with hundreds of people on there and networking opportunities. So I totally recommend that people, if you've enjoyed this, you will also enjoy that. So so do get in touch there. I'll leave the final words over to you.
Sadi?
Yes, everybody is welcome to join our webinars. Actually, tomorrow we'll have one about strategy implementation roadmap, but in more detail, including assessment and whatnot. I'm extremely happy that I've joined my friend Antonio again. One thing about Antonio, you cannot not be happy around Antonio. Also, I'm very happy, Camille, that I've met you. You are a star for years to come. One thing I would like to thank the people. I believe people are becoming, Antonio, more intelligent. Okay, I've never ever seen lately except very smart questions. We have to think hard to be able to answer them. What do you think?
I love that. Yeah, thank you, Sadi. Thank you for being here. Camille, one word to finish, couple of words.
Just big thank you, Antonio, Dr. Sadi, Estelle, everybody. I had a blast. This was really good, and I really look forward to the next one. So many greetings from Belgium, Brussels over here.
Thank you very much. Goodbye. Thank you, APMG. Thank you, Estelle.
Bye-bye.